America and Australia. Another face-off. Well, actually, no, not a face-off. We're looking at 10 shocking similarities between America and Australia. Now, a lot of times we cover differences between these two, me being from America and me absolutely in love with Australia. And there are many differences, right? Of course. I mean, there's differences between a lot of different countries. That's kind of what makes the world go around. But I think there's some similarities. At least I think, and it's just kind of interesting, right? It's also interesting to find out, oh, look, they're across the world and they can relate to this. So, yeah, let's learn about it. This is from Tristan Kuhn. We reacted to him before, so make sure to check his channel out in the description down below. It will be linked there. This is a Discord suggestion from PJ Pete, so appreciate this, guys. Let's go.
What's good, y'all? Tristan here, and today I'm going to be doing my #1 most requested video of all time and sharing with you some similarities between America and Australia. Between all of the differences videos I've done, I've probably covered close to 200 differences between America and Australia, and if you include different language stuff, it's probably closer to 500, so we've covered all the differences, and the reason why I haven't done any similarities is because similarities are just boring. Oh, they both speak English, they both have McDonald's, they both have Starbucks, oh, they're both really big countries. No one cares. You don't really learn much about similarities, and I don't know, this is not as cool as differences. Especially,
I'll agree they're not as interesting as literal differences, but sometimes it's, at least to me, it is kind of interesting if you learn a similarity that you didn't know about. Of course, we both speak English. Of course, both countries have Macca's, McDonald's, but when one of them is like, oh, wait, you guys have that or do that the exact same way? I wouldn't have thought that. See, it could be kind of interesting. I don't know. Let's see.
Especially because the US and Australia have so many similarities. Like, when thinking about what countries are the most similar to the US, I think #1, Canada. And #2, I think, is Australia. I can't think of any country that's more similar to the US than Australia, besides Canada. And when you look at it from Australia's perspective, you might say, yeah, you know, they're more similar to New Zealand, England, Canada, but it's still really similar to the States.
Now, he made a good point there. I think actually, I can't speak on this, but I would assume from an Australian perspective, based on what I've heard from Australians in my comments, you know, people acknowledge that there are some similarities that the U.S. has to their home in Australia, but I don't know if they view the similarities as strongly. Like, they think Australia might be similar to some other places before it would be similar to the U.S. So that's a great point, because I think Americans might assume exactly that. Canada is our nearest neighbor, and they're very similar to us in certain ways. You know, it's very comfortable crossing that border. But I even before this YouTube channel, learning and making so many awesome friends and hearing so many stories from Australia, from Australians, I would have still assumed, you know, on just the top of my head, like, oh, Australia is another place that's similar to the U.S. Not the same, but similar. It's just kind of the way more Americans think.
Now, I don't want to bore you with similarities, so that's why in this video we are going to be covering 10 shockingly similar things between America and Australia. Jesus Christ, I'm looking at this video and I look like I have freaking raccoon eyes. There's a big old bright light right above me. Not the best lighting. Anyways, now what qualifies as shocking? Well, glad you asked, because there are 2 things that I looked for in this video. One was just something you might not think of, something unusual, you don't realize it's similar, but I don't know, it is. And the second is that it is a similarity between the 2 countries that there's not really any other countries around the world that share this similarity. Besides Canada. We gotta just forget about Canada for this video. We're gonna pretend like it just doesn't exist. Anyways, #1, we got grocery stores. So, I remember, like, the first week I was in Australia, someone asked me, what do you think of our grocery stores? Like, they're so big, they're so massive, like, what do you think of them? My thought was like, they're just like this in the States. This is nothing different to me. However, that is something that is done similar in each country that isn't really like that in pretty much any other country around the world. We have the most insanely large grocery stores. Grocery stores I've been to in Europe and Asia and South America are all much smaller. Even though they might have a couple really big ones in other countries, their really big ones in other countries are like small ones in America and Australia. Literally, this is the grocery store that I shopped at growing up, and this is a typical Australian grocery store. And around the rest of the world, like, as big as they get is like, I don't know, about this, like, about size of a typical Aldi, I guess. #2, both.
So that's a good point. I would pretty much agree with that, just based on what I've heard from you guys, a lot of viewers. That's cool. That would be something I would dig. I personally like big stores. Being an American, I think it's awesome. I think small stores, you know, I don't know. I just think they're boring. They're kind of weird. Like, I love being in a big store and having so many options as a consumer. So, yeah, American stores and then hearing Australian stores can also be very big, more so than a lot of other countries. It's refreshing. I like that. That's cool. Good move, Aussies.
Our countries have our own unique version of football.
True.
Lots of countries have a national sport, but our national sports are also like the #1 sport in that country. And what is also unique to both of our countries is traditional football, like soccer football, is not a super common sport in either country. I mean, it's common, but it doesn't make the top 3 in popularity in either country. Number 3 is that to some extent, both countries were founded by criminals. I do gotta say, I find it kind of funny that Australians, they kind of brag about this fact. They're like, oh, like, we're hard, we're founded by criminals. Like, I don't know, it's just something that a lot of Australians kind of brag about. However, the reality is, England used to send its criminals to America. And it wasn't until America got its independence that they had nowhere to send them, so then they sent them to Australia. So not to hurt your feelings, but you're not the only and you're not the first country to be receiving England's criminals. Number 4 is our strict drinking laws. Now, the laws in each country are very different, but both of them are very strict in different ways. I know
strict in different ways. I was going to say, I remember hearing, I think you guys can drink at 18, correct, in Australia? So that's not similar at all because America, the United States is very odd in that respect, as most countries, like most, you can drink between 16, 18, 19, but 21 is like super old, right? And that's what it is here in the United States. But then again, I know our liquor is really affordable, really cheap compared to most places in Australia I've seen, and different restrictions. I know like mostly in America, there's some restrictions, but it's different for each state. But you can, mostly buy alcohol every day and most of the day, with the exception being usually like 2 a.m. to like 6 a.m. or something.
Strict is a bit relative. Like if you compare to like our rules to like the Middle East, no, they're not strict. But if you compare to like most of Europe, a lot of places in Asia, South America, there's a lot more rules and regulations on our alcohol. And it totally varies state to state in each country, but here are a couple of examples of how we have really strict laws. Obviously in America, it's 21. Almost everywhere, bars close at 2 a.m. And on top of that, when you can buy alcohol from a store is very limited. Like in Texas, where I'm from, you can't buy liquor after 9 p.m. any day, and you can't buy it at all on Sundays. Now in Australia, it is also...
Okay, see, that's different. Wow, I didn't even know that. It's funny because we're frequently in Texas because we live in super, super southern New Mexico, literally on the border of New Mexico and Texas. But we do most of our shopping here in New Mexico. And in New Mexico, I've bought alcohol late at 12 a.m. before. So that is kind of odd. I didn't know that about Texas, even though it's so close. In Illinois, where we're originally from, same deal. You can buy it really late.
Also crazy strict, but is like completely different crazy strict. It's like, all right, lockout laws. Like you can't get into a bar after 1 a.m. No shots after midnight. I mean, this isn't everywhere, but in some places in Australia. Additionally, you pour the exact amount. You like measure every little drop of alcohol so precisely. Additionally, where you can buy alcohol, you can't buy alcohol anywhere in Australia besides for a bar or like a bottle shop. Like no gas stations, no convenience stores, no grocery stores, no bottle shops. Like, I mean, again.
Now that's different. You can buy alcohol almost anywhere, and I mean anywhere in the United States.
Not every state, but in a lot of states is how it is. Oh my god, and don't even get me started on how strict they are in getting into clubs. You go into a club, the bouncer will ask you, how many drinks have you had? There's no right answer to that. Like, you say anything less than 3, they don't believe you. And if you say anything more than 3, they can just be like, yeah, you're drunk, and they won't let you in.
Oh my god.
Next up, food. Yes, our countries are on opposite sides of the world, but we literally have like some of the most similar food. Yes, you can argue specific things like, oh, Texas has good barbecue or Australia has like meat pies. But for the most part, like 95% of the food in one country, you can find it in the other country. The flavors are generally the same. Might be a little bit more Mexican in America and a little bit more Middle Eastern in Australia, but overall, food is quite similar. Number 6 is the variety of landscapes and climates.
Yes.
Just like the whole like great outdoors. I think America has pretty much every single type of climate besides like a rainforest, and Australia, I don't know, pretty much has every single type of climate as well. I don't think this...
Yeah, this is one I always advocate for. I probably even said this at the beginning. I can't remember. This is one I really dig because I think it's one of the most spectacular things about the United States. It is from a geographic perspective, all the different landscapes and weather and different things, the vibes, it is hard to beat. It is just a gorgeous, gorgeous country. And Australia, I've only seen on a screen, and it looks absolutely gorgeous as well. That's how I know it must be absolutely epic in person. And that's the thing, wide open spaces, tons of different landscapes. You drive 10 hours in every direction from a certain point, you're going to see different things in each country. That's where we're similar and even similar size. So that's one thing I really like about Australia is it's like the U.S. in that regard, and that's a good one because who doesn't love different weather, different things, different scenery all the time? I think that's a cool thing.
There's another country in the world that has the climate variety that we do, and because of that, both of us have some pretty banger national parks. Number 7 is that compared to a lot of other countries around the world, both the US and Australia don't really smoke that much.
That's
Number
true.
8 has to do a little bit with the people and the culture, and that is that both places, the people for both places are very loud and outgoing for the most part. People like to say Americans are really loud, but also they're friendly and outgoing, and I kind of have to agree with that for the most part, but I also think those same stereotypes are quite true for a lot of Australians. Can definitely be a little bit boisterous, they like to socialize. I feel like whenever I'm in an international environment in, I don't know, different areas, oftentimes the people who have the biggest like presence in the room, the most like noticeable, just like out there talking, I don't know how to really say it, but it's often Americans and Australians. Now number 9 is that we both love Hawaii. You're probably like, so Tristan, like doesn't everyone love—
Haven't been there, definitely on my bucket list. Hawaii looks amazing, so it's pretty cool that obviously Americans go there because it's a U.S. state, but also it's cool that Australians go there because Hawaii is just kind of in between. I mean, it's really far away from America, but you know, it's a plane ride away, and it's halfway to Australia. I mean, probably not literally halfway, but you know what I mean. It's in the middle.
Love Hawaii? Yes, they do. But when I think of Australia's, like the top 2 holiday destinations outside of the country for Australians, it's probably number 1, Indonesia, Bali, and then number 2, Hawaii. And when I think of the top tourist destinations for Americans, mainland Americans, Alaska and Hawaii, but I think of like Cancun, Mexico, and then probably next, Hawaii. It's right in between our 2 countries, like the mainland parts of each of our countries, and I would be surprised if there's any country that has more tourism in Hawaii rather than mainland America and Australia. Now number 10, and this one might be my favorite, but it's another one that's really hard to word, but we both have a very unique subculture of country folk in our countries. That sounds really weird, but what I'm trying to say is, y'all got Bogans,
and
we
rednecks.
got rednecks, and I don't know of any other country that has a subculture within it of country people that's so strong and identifiable as ours. Yes, obviously there are country boys and farmers.
You know what? I hate to say it, but that is kind of legitimate, right? I mean, that's not like, I always thought like redneck hillbilly, that was like super American, but then as I learned, you know, that sort of subculture does sort of exist in Australia too. And that's weird because not a lot of other countries you'd even think of that.
But there's something about rednecks and Bogans that give them a certain X factor. Whether it's the way they talk, their accent, or what they like what hobbies they have, or how they look, they're just very identifiable. In Australia, they got the outback. In the States, we got the Wild West and those country towns. And I don't know, it's just something like, yes, obviously there are farmers and countries in each country, but ours are just so prevalent and unique to our countries, I guess is how I'd say it. If you have—
Alrighty, so there you go. There it is, 10 striking similarities between America and Australia, according to this video. What did you think of that? I pretty much agree with most of these. They were pretty fun to learn. A couple of them I wouldn't have thought of off the top of my head, so that was kind of cool. And yeah, there's a lot of differences, of course, but there are some similarities, and I think they're kind of interesting when there's stuff that you wouldn't normally think of exactly, you know, first thing. So yeah, that was really fun. Both cultures, both countries, of course, have their own identity. No one's saying they're exactly the same. Not even close. But it is cool that we share some things. And that's what makes America and Australia great friends. They're mates. I think that should be the way it is. I think both countries are awesome. And yeah, nice firm handshake between the two. I like that. So tell me down below in the comments. That's where these videos shine, is you guys in the comments. Let's talk down there. What did you agree with on this list? Also, something that could have been on this list that wasn't on there, tell me down below. And did you disagree with any of these? Please go ahead and voice your opinion down there. Also, don't forget to check that description. This original video will be linked down there. And of course, other ways you can interact with my channel. Please throw a thumbs up, a like on this video. Help this video out if you enjoyed it and got a laugh out of it. I do appreciate it. And of course, you can subscribe if you haven't already. Join this amazing community here, okay? And that being said, guys, my name is Ian. You're watching IWrocker. Till next time, and catch you later.